work session for today. We only have a few items on the agenda, but our meetings are public, and you're welcome to join us in person or by watching from the council's agenda page, Zoom, YouTube, or SLC TV. We hope you'll continue to join us in whatever manner you feel most comfortable. In this work session, we do not have any public comment, but we hope that you'll join us on October 21st during our 7 p.m. formal meeting to share any comments you have with us. You can also share your feedback anytime by mail or by email to council.comments@slc.gov, or you can use our 24-hour phone comment line, 801-535-7654. Comments received on agenda item topics are shared with the full council and posted to our website, slccouncil.com. The first item on the agenda is corrections to the consolidated fee schedule. So on this, we've got Austin Kimmel, Council Policy Analyst, Laura Briefer, Director of Public Utilities, Lisa Tarafueli, the Finance Administrator for Public Utilities, and Jacob Jorgensen, Financial Analyst for Public Utilities.
You're getting good on the name.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, council members. Public Utilities is here to present its request that the council approve a correction to the city's consolidated fee schedule, or CFS, adding the missing title, fire lines, and the description per inch to a rate table in the water section of the CFS. You can see that table on page 2 of the staff report. According to Public Utilities, the correction, if not approved, the department may have to revert back to the FY25 CFS section with former rates for the fire lines, which could result in about a $740,000 difference in revenue at budgeted set to collect. This is a follow-up briefing to a September 16th written briefing. Following that written briefing, questions about the fire line fees were raised by council members and members of the public, so it was determined a public briefing should be scheduled to allow for additional discussion. While the matter before you today is the correction of the CFS schedule to add the missing title and description, it's important to note that the fees Public Utilities collects for fire lines were raised as part of its FY26 budget. Public Utilities is here to describe the fire line fee, why it exists, the history of the fee, and how the cost of service for the fee was determined. With that, I'll turn it over to Laura Briefer.
Hi, thank you. Was that loud to me? I am actually going to turn this right over to Jacob Jorgensen. I'd like to introduce you to our financial analyst here. I think this is the first time he's been here before the council. He brings a lot of expertise and a long history with the city. So Jacob.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm financial analyst with Public Utilities, been with them for 3 years. Before that, I was with Internal Audit, and that was for 4 years with them. And so I was the project manager for the rate study, as well as I handle all of our budgets, put those together to present up here to you. Just to give you a brief background on the fire lines. So these are very unique connections to our system. Because of the amount of water that has to flow through a fire line to put out fires, we don't put meters on them. Instead, historically, we just have a straight pipe, or at most we have a detector check line on the side of it. But it is a straight pipe is the main part to be able to supply the amount of water necessary for fire suppression. As I went back and tried to find the history on this rate, I unfortunately could not find when it was originally adopted, but I have been able to trace it back that we've been charging the same rate, $1 per inch of connection, since 1961. So at least in 64 years, this rate has never been updated. I think it's the oldest rate on our system that never has. As that, when we hired our consultants for the rate study, we asked them to review fire lines and update that fee. It is a substantial cost on our system because in order to provide fire suppression, we have to upsize pipes, add additional pump stations, or increase their size. To put it into perspective, a 12-inch fire line can pump around 56 gallons per second. A fire line can pump almost 650 gallons per second, so 10 times more water. So to supply that, it's a lot of infrastructure cost. As a result of that, we came up with our new fees, our new rates for it. And in all the hustle and bustle on our internal documents, we had all the right stuff on the CFS. But what we submitted to you was missing, unfortunately, the description of per inch. And then when they actually published the CFS, it was missing the fire lines title altogether. So we now have that rate table with no title and no description. While we could have fixed the fire line title, we thought since the description wasn't there, we needed to present it again to the city council for approval. So that's where we're at. And I guess I want to turn the time over to you. What questions do you have for us?
Councilmember Dugan.
Thank you for that. And I have a few, a long list of questions from one of my residents. And I think, Austin, we need to probably forward that to the public utilities because there's probably not enough time to answer all those questions. But one of the first questions was just the idea that this was not a Scrivener error. This is to their extent, is that this is more than just a missing line, and the reason why there's not a public hearing or the need for a public hearing for the update or the changes that they're seeing, and that there's also just a lot of questions about the fire line, and you've answered the one that went all the way back to 1961, not 2021. But can you first address that first question about the public hearings process?
Yeah, so on the public hearing side, we did present in the fire line adjustments in that we were looking at those in the rate study. We did have this and presented to our rate advisory committee, which was a public meeting, and we had talked about it in those. We also sent out notifications on when it comes to miscellaneous fees, we oftentimes don't list those in all the notifications or in the final report, just because we have so many. We generally keep that to the rates, the main rates that apply to most customers, rather than these miscellaneous rates. So while it was generally published, the rate itself wasn't published.
Okay, so from my perspective, we had that. It was part of the public discussions. It wasn't maybe highlighted as others. It just didn't get into the budget side and the CF consolidated fee schedule documents.
Yeah, and you might remember all of our discussions with respect to our rates. We did keep it to, the changes in the structure, the tiered rates, those main rates, but like a lot of city departments, there are a lot of miscellaneous fees and charges for many, many things, and we just didn't pull all of those out to have a discussion about each one during the presentation or during, a lot of the public discussions.
So in this case, since, yes, it's been the same charge of $1 an inch for 64 years, there is a time when you do need to increase it, and this is a big increase for a number of people in those HOA areas, more so than anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, it's multifamily commercial buildings, anywhere with the automatic sprinkler system.
Anywhere where the sprinklers is going to have a fire line.
Exactly. And so this spans a whole gamut of different types of customers, properties, and everything. Generally, compared to the rest of the utility bill, this is a very small portion of their utility bill. Usually buildings that are big enough to install sprinkler systems usually have a much higher water usage and sewer usage. So it is a relatively very small impact on the bills. Yeah, sorry. Did I answer all your questions, or did you have
Yeah, so far, I am going to ask Austin, but let's forward them to the questions, because there's there's at least, there's 7 with a lot of sub-bullets there. So instead of taking the time now to ask all those questions, I would like to, if you could respond to those.
Yeah.
Councilmember Petro.
Okay, since this is on the consolidated fee schedule, this is a one-time fee that is paid, not an ongoing adjustment to the rate that our consumers will see.
It is a monthly fee. for that service. So it is
Okay.
every month they receive that same amount.
Why is it housed on the consolidated fee schedule and not within our utilities rates then?
I think we aim to have all of our utility rates on the consolidated fee schedule.
Okay. And then, so we know who ultimately shoulders the burden of every fee and every tariff we put. It's ultimately the end user. Theoretically, who would we be targeting? Is this a developer, or are we just at peace with the fact that we're raising rates again on an end user?
So it's not the developers. These rates apply to the owner of the property. So whoever that is, that's who has it.
Okay.
Yeah, so when they sell it, it passes on to the next one.
These are private fire lines too. So, one way to think about it is this is akin to fire insurance. So, these are typically larger properties, larger buildings. The reason why they have a fire line is because of the way it's because of state code, actually. And so it's something that's actually required of them as well.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Councilmember Petro, also to your question, especially since there was a constituent comment about what the noticing process had been for this. When the council reviews the public utilities budget each year during the annual budget process, it's typically that they're presenting their fees, whether it be structure or rate changes, in some slides and in their budget book, but all of those ultimately end up in the consolidated fee schedule. So even though as staff we don't normally bring it to you in that format, it is typically where that's kept. Yeah, so I just wanted to address that. And that consolidated fee schedule, a clean version of it was posted online throughout the budget process and for each of those public hearings that the council typically holds. It's typically fines and other types of fine type charges that the city has that are not included on the consolidated fee schedule. So I just wanted to clarify that, because it is, and we recognize that it is tricky sometimes for average members of the public who might not be familiar with all of the city documents to know where to find all of that information during the annual budget process, but that is typically how it's presented.
Councilmember Mono.
So, the fire line fee is per inch, but the per inch price is drastically larger when you have a larger line. But we're still taking that, for instance, a 10-inch line, we're still taking that $12.04, timesing it by 10, and they're monthly paying $122.40. But then what's the service fee in the section above it that's not per inch? What is that? That's not for fire lines?
So that is for meters. And that's where the difference in this comes into, is the difference between meters, which we have to
That's for
service.
just culinary water
Correct.
service.
Yeah.
They're paying, so if I have a 12-inch water meter and a 10-inch fire line, I'm paying $1,036 for the water meter and another $122 for the fire line, plus my per unit amount. So the meter is just to have service at all, is the base rate, and then I'm okay.
Yeah, yes, that's correct. So yes, the meter is just for the culinary. And the reason we have it as per inch on the fire lines is because we don't have meters, so we can't say meter size on those. And that's why we have it on the connection per inch. And there's also a difference on a meter, you could have a 12-inch connection going down to an 8-inch meter, but on a fire line, you won't have that reduction. You'll have a straight pipe.
Right.
So.
Okay. I just, that it's a little confusing the way it's written, because one is just an amount and the other is a per inch amount. So it's confusing for me to read. And then on top of that, they're also paying a volumetric amount. So
Yeah.
we don't actually get the chance to go this deep during the annual budget session. So I'm kind of glad that it was missed and I can look at this a little bit more, but I'm understanding why it's confusing to constituents.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we have to change it, but it is complicated.
It can be depending on what people add to it.
Any other questions? Yep, Councilmember Romano. Another? What? Oh, okay. Oh, okay, Councilmember Pui.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I guess you can see my screen either. For what I understand, there's been more than 60 years of adjustment on this fee, and the cost of maintaining and servicing these lines certainly have increased during that time, and this makes sense to me. But because there's been a lot of growth over those 60 years, I'm trying to guess on who is going to be the most impacted. And my guess is the new developments, the newer of developments, that would have used this sort of lines and this sort of private fire lanes. Would you say that those ones were correctly charged for the correct amount, or were you still using the old formula? I guess my question relates to, we have been using, even for projects that happened a year ago, have we been using the same old formula fee schedule for them too? And if that's the case, I guess it's going to affect everybody that falls within this category.
Yes, so the fee that we've had for the last 64 years has applied to everyone, of $1 per inch of connection. And so this update will affect everyone with that same connection, whether they're a new development or 60 years old. They'll all see that increase from this.
Mr. Chair, follow up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why did it took us so long to adjust this? 64 years seems like a long time to fix this. Why was this not catch earlier?
Well, they hired me on, and I'm good at what I do. No, there are a number of fees and things that have just been long-standing practice, and we have done some digging to figure out why this wasn't originally included when the CFS was first adopted back in 2011. It's hard to say in the past why this wasn't caught. One of the things that they tasked me with is going through our rates, updating them, revising them, making sure everything's on par, as well as doing my own analysis to make sure that they're accurate. And so this is just one of the things that has come out of that. I really can't say why no one looked at this before. We've had other things like this, like our fire charges. We charge other city for their fire protection. We had to update that, and that was in the neighborhood of a few $100,000 per municipality. And so there are some things like this that just have fallen by the wayside and haven't been updated in 20, 30, 40 years. And I'm not sure if Laura, I think Laura has something to add.
Well, I'll just say there's probably not that many things that we haven't caught in that time, but one of the things that we did ask Jacob and our finance team to do during this rate study was to really prioritize equity and fairness in our rates, which meant making sure we looked at all of the rates that we charge, so that we reduce the reduce the potential for subsidization. And this is one of those fees that, because it hasn't been looked at for quite some time, have probably been subsidized by others on the system. And so we want to make sure that we're correcting that as well.
I think also sorry, Councilmember Pui, if I didn't mean to interrupt. Okay. I just wanted to also highlight for council members that I think that for years, it was part of Public Utilities rate setting plan to keep rates as competitive and low as possible. And I think there are a couple of things just to forecast for council members. Not only are we feeling some of the pain points of that in the last few years of rate increases, but I think also as we look forward for the large projects that they're handling, the future rate increases that will be needed for that, and also for the reevaluation of their impact fees, this process will continue occurring because there is a little bit of catch up, maybe a lot of catching up that is needed to ensure that the rates that are being charged are adequate for the service that they're providing. And of course, we all know how important good, clean drinking water is and a good sewer treatment process. And unfortunately, those costs are just really catching up with the city at this point. And so it's no longer really about how do we compare with other similar sized cities. I think because everyone is seeing a huge jump in rates and what it costs to run utilities like this. So I just want to flag that because we as your staff are also aware of the number of increases and how that's affecting your constituents. And unfortunately, I think it's just kind of a generational decision that is now catching up with the city. And so I just wanted to put it in that context as well, because really we're not done with a lot of how this is going to continue affecting your constituents. Sarah.
Councilmember Young and then Petro.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I know that this has been an ongoing discussion that we as the city have been trying to figure out. I think one of the key issues, and I think you probably hear it in the number of questions that, various council members are receiving, is that our existing communication still isn't hitting the mark in terms of helping to explain that to our constituents. When I receive outreach that's like, so wait a minute, it's a 1/4 inch versus a 1/2 inch, and I don't understand why I'm being charged one versus another, but then my rate changed here, but then it stayed the same here. Like, I appreciate that the bill itself is just a lot of different variables put together, and I would just love to see us continue to make an effort to find ways to create more accessible information for our residents so that they're not trying to decipher why certain things are going up, and that we have citywide messaging related to the situation that we're in terms of there are significant infrastructure needs that were deferred, and that we as the community are going to be accountable for being able to address those to maintain the services of clean water that we expect.
Councilmember Petro.
Can I ask maybe from our policy analysts for some kind of lit review for traditionally how things like this have been creatively funded as well? No request that we've ever seen is irrational or something that I don't want to do, but in my community in particular, we have reached the ceiling of what we can expect out of an end user, and we're getting to the point where we are displacing seniors from housing because of fixed incomes. And so these are not things that I ever want to say no to, but these are also not things that I have any overhead or feel any comfort continuing to grant. And I definitely don't want to be like the council person from Mississippi who allowed an entire water system to collapse. So it feels like we're being painted into corners by virtue of what you were talking about, like a generationally deferred maintenance that all of us have inherited. But it also feels like we're at an economic crisis too, where the end user can't shoulder all these. So if we could maybe get some policy analysis to help us and find out if there are options that we haven't looked at for funding or mechanisms, I would really appreciate that as a policy consideration.
And when you're asking about that, are you envisioning not only things like grants, but also maybe assistance programs, or like what are there things that
I
come
would
to mind
would
for you?
think in anything and all, because everything feels like it has to be done. I haven't seen one frivolous vanity project. So anything and everything that can and should be done.
For sure.
Please.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yeah, appreciate everybody's comments and the coming back to us on this. I'm just going to focus on the fire line because, yeah, and put some of the onus on us because we're also the ones who pass the budget, and we should be the ones who are asking the question. But we need to make sure that we're all also aware of the big changes. And what's kind of disappointing on this fire one is this was a big change, yet we're just finding out that was 64 years. But we also realized that we were going from $1 to $8 and $12, an inch, but it never was raised as that this is a big one. And even though it may only be affecting so many people, it's still a big one. And I think that's what is probably, partially, yes, we're the ones who signed this and approve it, but we need to make sure that we hear that, because we probably discussed this somewhere, and there was maybe something written there, but it didn't raise to the level of like, wow, this is a lot. People be aware, back to Councilman Young's point of, we're not messaging it really well. Here's what your rate's going to look like, but we didn't tell them also that, hey, on your fire lines, it's going to go up 700% or 800%. And I think that is what is disheartening to me at this point. Is like, oh my God, we're asking these people to pay a lot, and we didn't have much of a discussion, and we should have.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and that's something we have considered, and I personally have been trying to do a better job even for our own department of presenting the outliers, the exceptions, these big changes, because it's, we were talking about, Lisa and I were talking about a customer that had an $800,000 adjustment on their bill, and they're like, okay, that's fine. But that's that one customer. But then you have the other customers where an $80 adjustment is a huge deal. And so that's where I'm trying to do a better job of presenting these sort of outliers so that you as a city council can make better decisions, seeing the impact, and our own director and staff can see those as well.
Councilmember Pui.
Quick question. This back and forth has helped me understand a little more where we all are. Obviously, it was mentioned here that there is a lot of, communication from constituents about the fees and the changes that we needed to make. My question relates to has the department explore the opportunity to phase in this update? I know that I'm sure that's not ideal, but it seems like we've been subsidizing this for 64 years, and I wonder if there is a ladder of reducing that subsidy over time, so there is no that many gigantic burdens and try to solve all the problem in at one time. I wonder if there is a concept like that could be explored, or in addition, maybe try to figure out how to minimize the burden for low-income housing, that may assist in the process to get this updated.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's certainly something we could explore, a phase-in of the fee, whatever could be appropriate. We just don't want to keep staying behind on that cost of service and that equity conversation, and the equity components of that for too long.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mono.
Maybe you can help me understand the equity consideration. So what's happening right now is inequitable because who's subsidizing whom under the current or the past situation?
Yeah, so basically what it is whatever we're not funding through direct rates for service gets pushed onto just general ratepayers. And so this fire service line fee, because it hadn't been updated, and to put it equivalent back in 1961 today, that would be $10.37 per inch. That's the equivalent with CPI, inflation. And so what's happened is this is a real cost on our system, and under the previous rate structures where it was $1 per inch, we were pushing that cost of private fire lines onto general taxpayers. So everything from your low income to your commercial buildings, they were paying for this service, this private service, through their rates that they were paying on everything else. And that's where the inequity comes in, and that's what we wanted to try to solve, is put the cost where.
And I'll just add to that in case it helps. So basically, there is a cost to the utility to ensure that they can provide that water through the line that's functioning to the homes and the connections, or the businesses and the connections.
These are mostly not homes, right? Houses
Right,
don't
yeah.
really have a fire line.
Would it be multifamily, any multifamily?
Multifamily would.
It would be large multifamily and commercial, so.
So
your
because
apartment
there's a
buildings.
cost to that, the revenue to pay for those costs have to come from somewhere. And since the fire line rate was not set to recover the cost of that line, the money to pay for it was coming from other ratepayers. So that's an equity issue, because single-family residents were paying into the utility revenues that were helping offset that cost. Other businesses, industrial users. Does that make sense? Does
Yeah,
that
I
help,
think
or am
the way
hurting?
it doesn't feel to constituents like it's correcting something is that all of the rates are going up. So it doesn't feel like, oh, we've corrected this thing that was wrong, and because of that, we can reduce rates here. Because I know that we're not in that position where we can reduce rates anywhere, because we have hundreds of year-old pipes underneath our streets. But I think it just doesn't feel like we're correcting something when there's not an offset in some other part of the system with rates going down. And I'm not saying I'm taking this position, but I'll just pose, like, a fire line is required to keep somebody safe because it's a certain type of building. And that often is connected to the types of buildings that are for low-income families to provide housing, i.e. multifamily buildings need to have fire lines because they're sharing walls in one structure, and therefore, so I guess I could make the argument that it's okay that single-family ratepayers in some way were subsidizing these other things because the people living in apartments typically are the lower income tier of our community. And so I guess I think there's multiple ways to look at it. I'm not saying that
May
I'm taking
I?
that position. I'm just saying
Yeah.
because I live in a single family house, I don't have to pay this rate, but it's often people that live in single family houses are actually the families that may be able to pay a higher rate. So
I want to just, I think, to make sure we're clear in this meeting and for the public, rate setting for water and wastewater utilities follows standard sector practices. And one of the main reasons why we do periodic rate studies and look at our rates is so that our rates are defensible. And our rates are defensible when we do not have cross-user group or classification subsidization. When we have rates that are not based on the cost of service for the class that's being served, then that can become problematic. And so I can understand this sentiment, but we also really, as a city and as a utility, we also really need to make sure that we're following those cost of service principles. And there's definitely reasonableness within that, like to the suggestion that the increase was too steep all at once. Phasing that in with the intention of creating that equity on the system is really important. I also want to say that while multifamily homes or multifamily developments have this fire line, so do warehouses and big industrial customers and all of those. So, and I can't tell you right now what the breakdown is between all of those different ones. So I want to be careful to not leave people with the impression that this is only multifamily developments. So just those two clarifications. And I understand everything, you know, definitely appreciate everything you just mentioned there.
I don't want to pile on because I have the same concerns that my colleagues have already shared. I'll just say that in my experience, the increase and the change in the kind of way we calculate has been difficult because there have been a couple instances where I won't say that like what the way a property was assessed was wrong, but there were like other alternatives or like a better way forward for those. And I have a lot of appreciation and thanks for the time that it takes to look at those and to, you know, see what was causing and then making like appropriate accommodations or changes or whatever we needed to, compromises. But it at the same time is hard because when I get other constituents that come and are saying, you know, this is how much it's increased for me, I don't know whether I should keep referring them and encouraging them to check to make sure that something's not, amiss. But I think that also can be, I don't want to like, obviously we can't double check everybody. And so, but I'm kind of caught in this position where like, I know that we've needed to make adjustments or corrections on other parts. So I don't know how to respond necessarily all the time. So I try to listen to that, but so in addition to like communicating this to residents and why these changes are happening, I think it's been really helpful to have the website tool that allows people to, and I have encouraged people to go there and say, put in what your old rate was. This should give you an estimate. If it's really off, then maybe you should contact Public Utilities. So if there are more kind of tools or ways that we can talk to residents about that to, double check themselves to see if there's something amiss, then that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah. And I just want to say thank you for working with us on some of the constituent concerns that have been raised and referring them to us, because it has helped us also understand, and this isn't related to the fire line, but it helps just in rates in general. It helps us understand better, and our constituents understand better, the way that water is being managed on their properties, especially some of the more complicated properties. We have a lot of tools, and the tools that you mentioned, the estimator is one. Another important tool that we've been working with people on is their landscape irrigation ratio.
Yeah.
Because many calls, I received one from during a town hall meeting in Cottonwood Heights, where a constituent said, my water bill is doubled, and we looked at their water consumption, and their water consumption is doubled. And just being able to have that back and forth with our constituents to help them understand, and us understand too, the way that water might be managed and how we might be able to help them do things like conserve water, or manage their water differently.
Yeah, and if the thanks haven't gotten back to you also from the residents, thank you on their behalf, on my behalf and their behalf for all the work that you've done, taking the time and looking at alternatives. Thank you. It's really appreciated. Mm-hmm. Any other questions on this? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to an informational briefing on convention and tourism assessments. Hi. So we have Krista Perry, Chief Brand and Experience Officer for Visit Salt Lake, Tyson Liebert, Chief Sales Officer for Visit Salt Lake, and Bart Blaisdell, Chief Financial Officer for Visit Salt Lake, and Pina Porpero, the General Manager for Hyatt Regency. Thank you so much to all of you for being here. Really appreciate it, and we're excited to hear from you.
Oh, is that on? Thank you guys so much for having us. We just wanted to come and, number one, express appreciation. 2 years ago, we were before you with the CTAA. This was an assessment for the hotels by the hotels. So Pino, who's here with the Hyatt, she's the chair of our Convention District Committee. And we had gone to the hotels to get the CTAA enacted. The hotels had approved it, and then we came to the city council here back in, I think it was October of 23, to get it approved by the city council. So we were just here to present to you guys some of the results of that and explain to you what CTAA does for the community. So we just wanted to start off with giving an overview of what the visitor economy does right here in Salt Lake City. So when you look at Salt Lake City's visitor economy, there are 75 lodging properties that have over 12,000 hotel rooms. On average, 71% of those rooms are occupied at a rate of $149 a night. And in 2024, Salt Lake City hotels generated approximately $471 million of revenue, and 35% of all that spending in Salt Lake City comes from visitors. And so it's a big economy here. Actually, Salt Lake County contributes $6.15 billion annually, which is about 46% of the state's overall visitor economy. So it's a big deal. When we look at the CTAA, so the CTAA was a hotel-led initiative, as I mentioned. It was approved by Salt Lake City Council in October of 23, and this is a 2% assessment on the hotels that gets reinvested into development. This is both through brand building, awareness, as well as through incentives that are offered to different groups that we bring into the Salt Palace Convention Center and other complexes around. 3 districts, so there's 3 districts across Salt Lake County. The one that we're talking to you about is the Convention District, but there's 2 other districts that are also included in the CTAA. There's the South District, which is inclusive of Sandy City and Draper, and then there's the West District that has West Valley and Kearns in that. In Salt Lake City, so there's 35 hotels. Essentially what we did is there's 2 rules. Tyson, what are the 2 rules that are part of the CTAA?
These are legislatively outlined, and that is that the CTAA funds would be spent to generate hotel room revenue, and that would have equitable benefit. So those are the 2 guardrails for us.
So it's the participating hotels. So there are 35 hotels within the Convention District Committee, or it's Convention District, and that is kind of what makes up the CTAA. So
yeah, and just the Convention District is 1 mile from the Salt Palace Convention Center. So not the entirety of Salt Lake City, just that mile.
yeah, and so so we have committee meetings. We have lots of committee meetings, as Pina can attest to. Pina's the chair of our committee, and this is made up by hotels, for hotels. We also have representation from the economic development team here, as well as with the Salt Lake, with the Downtown Alliance. And we meet monthly for each of these committees. We bring incentives to them, and then they are the ones who decide what is the best use of funds for the hotels. So as we look at how CTAA funds are invested, so of the overall budget, so in 2024, the budget was $7.8 million. In 2025, the budget is $8.3 million. And those funds are invested directly into driving more visitors and driving people here. So 80% of the CTAA funds are actually generated right here in the Convention District, and we'll show you a little bit later, what the average daily rate looks like for the Convention District as compared to some of the other districts, and actually how we're comparing against our comp cities. But really, this budget is to go across district-wide development. So that's really to build the awareness of Salt Lake. When we think about how do we help to drive demand, how do we help to drive consideration, that really is in elevating Salt Lake in awareness. We did a brand health study a few years back, and 63% of people were actually unaware of Salt Lake City, which is fascinating, right? People don't even have Salt Lake in their mindset. And in fact, when we show them this picture, this beautiful picture here that is, the city with the mountains in the background, they don't think a place like that exists. They think that that's AI because they just are not aware. I grew up in Denver, and I always say, no, Salt Lake's where you want to be. If you want access to the outdoors or access to anything, Salt Lake's where you want to be. And that's part of these brand building initiatives, is really to help drive that awareness of Salt Lake and how incredible we are. That helps not only with leisure travelers, but really important for the convention district and the Salt Palace is for meeting planners. They want to know that their convention attendees would want to come to Salt Lake, and that's part of all these efforts of what we're doing. One of those brand building initiatives was the Salt Lake Winter Roundup. How many of you guys came to West Temple to the Skidroin event that was taking place? Yes. Thank you, Sarah. But to think that we could, I grew up in a small ski town, Steamboat Springs. You see these skijoring events happening. They're Nordic events. They happen in small ski towns, but had they ever been an urban destination? So we thought, okay, let's build the brand. Let's bring Winter Roundup here. And in its first year, we had just over 10,000 people. Last year, in the second year, we had over 20,000 people here. Much of those, close to 30% of those people, were out-of-state visitors who are coming here to experience that in our downtown streets. Tyson's going to talk about how important convention and events are to us.
Thank you very much. And Skijoring's also good for events. I think we hosted a site inspection, and they'd known us from Skijoring. They'd seen the pictures online, and were excited to be there. So it goes across into meetings as well. The CTA has been a huge success for us. As you look at our numbers, and we'll go through some of those numbers, you'll see how we're growing and doing comparative to the cities we compete with. When we're talking about events, it's a highly competitive marketplace. So these big events that we try and bring to Salt Lake are interested in every major Western city. We compete most closely with Denver because of proximity, but Seattle, Anaheim, Houston, Austin, Portland, all are cities we frequently compete with. And the CTA allows us to compete at a much higher level, and we are seeing wins and success. So we're excited for what's happened, and the momentum's even growing. I mean, we're just super excited about that. About 49 events will be booked this year with CTAA funds, some component of CTAA funds. 519,000 attendees will be attached to those meetings, and about 700,000 room nights. That will equate to $275 million worth of economic impact and activity. Of course, that's obviously, those people are going to pay taxes, and that money comes back to the city and the county, and we're excited to see that go. Just to kind of give you a case study, this last year we hosted ARVO, which is an ophthalmology research group. They've never had Salt Lake on their radar. They love Seattle, and we were able to convince them to come to Salt Lake. And they loved it. And it was our best revenue producing week we've ever had. Better than the NBA All-Star Game. And they loved it so much they've rebooked us for 2032. So those are the kinds of wins that have made a huge difference and are changing the way things are going for our visitor economy. So, and as you guys are investing in the airport and things like the Hyatt, and as you know, the convention district, that's the SECC, as you guys are investing in those things, those are making a difference, and we're seeing that actualize. Some of the funds we use have been interesting. We did not anticipate having to use them in certain ways. For example, we hosted the Catholic University students earlier this year on January 1st. We had approximately 17,500 students come to Salt Lake. They jam-packed downtown. They were budget conscious, of course, and to get from the airport to downtown, their plan was to use tracks we learned a valuable lesson that Trax is only closed on 2 days a year, one of those being January 1st. So that's a huge problem.
Thanksgiving, Christmas
Yeah, not very often, but on New Year's Day it was. And so we had to work together to find a way to transport 17,000 attendees from the airport to downtown. The CTAA committee, Pina is in charge of, helped approve a plan to secure busing to be able to mass move all of those people. Those CTA funds were huge in being able to save that. We had other events that with the Delta Center going under renovation, they needed to pivot on their side, and they're going to build a stadium inside the Salt Palace, which took a significant amount of funds, and the CTAA stepped up to help retain those events. So we're just seeing different ways that we didn't anticipate how the CTAA could come in and help us. They've been fantastic. We've also seen a wide range of venues benefit from these funds. So the RAC out near the airport has hosted several of the sporting events that we've incentivized. Just recently, we hosted the Far West President's Cup out there. Next year, we're going to host the largest soccer tournament that we've ever had in the state. They usually go to Orlando, to the Worldwide of Sports, and they're coming to Salt Lake, and we're super excited. And the CTAA funds are instrumental in helping to do that. So we just want to make sure you guys know that these funds have been put to good use. Pina and the committee are very thoughtful and engaged, and we're so happy with the success that we've seen. Maybe to kind of end my portion of it, as you've seen the results, we saw a 19% increase in our bookings the first year that the CTA funds were implemented. If you look at hotel room revenue performance, right now this year, so far year to date, the convention district has grown 5.4% in its hotel revenue. That is the best city that we've tracked in all of the cities we track, and we track 12 major cities on the west. Most of those cities are actually declining in revenue, so to see a 5.4% increase is significant. And that's the momentum that has come from some of these wins, and we're just excited to see that continue.
And we thought it would be interesting, again, this is for the committees, for the hotels, by the hotels, and Pina chairs our convention district committee, and I thought it would be important for her to maybe just share how these incentives, why these incentives and why this assessment is important for attracting big groups.
Hi. I think just from a hotel perspective, the best part of the CTA is it keeps myself and the other hotels in collaboration and aligned on what our goals are for the city. It helps us stay focused on what incentives will really drive the best business to all of our hotels. We're looking out because it has to be equitable. It allows us to look at it of what is best to help all the hotels. And on the committee, our hotels that are full service, select service, we have very different types of customers, but it keeps us aligned on what the greater goal is for the city. It also helps us identify opportunities of how we can attract more visitors, build our occupancy, build our average daily rate, and drive ultimately tax dollars to the city through having more attendees in the city. I would also say, looking ahead, as the convention center gets put into that renovation in 2027, the CTAA is going to be critical on how we are spending dollars to keep visitors continuing to be here while the convention center is at 50% occupancy. So finding creative ways of how we continue to get business in the city without having the full use of the center is really going to be critical.
Are there any questions?
Any questions, council members? Councilmember Young.
I love ski touring. Let's do it more often. Yes. I think one of the things that I actually found so entertaining about that particular event was just the diversity of individuals that came to cheer. We had legislators going down the street, being pulled by a horse. And I was like, some of you can just keep going. But I will say it was one of those pieces where I was really grateful to see kids, families, and the thing that I think impressed me about it the most was that it was free. Like, it was just about coming down and enjoying the city center. And after you finish there, watching individuals go to frequent our small businesses and, go shopping or, take the tracks to another area to try a new restaurant. To me, it just speaks to like the innovation and the potential for that innovation. So I'm really grateful to see those types of things that I've never seen before in other cities. And just wanted to say thank you for, I'm sure, I can't even imagine being in the room on the first day that this was proposed, being like, guess what we're gonna do? But I appreciate you guys leading out in that way.
Well, we appreciate the city and the city council support. The first time we did that, we actually planned it in like 30 days. And so it really was the support of the city, the support of the city council, the support of the CTA. That's how we make things happen. So thank you.
Sorry, any other questions? Does Ollie have a question? No? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 3. This is a resolution on Salt Lake Central Housing and Transit Reinvestment Zone Interlocal Agreement. Oh wait, that's a written briefing, sorry. Board appointment. I guess I'll just state for the record on number 3 that we addressed that during our CRA in depth, so that's why it's just a written briefing this time. Okay, board appointment, come on down. Brian Conley is being recommended for the Transportation Advisory Board. So, Brian, this is your time to tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're interested in this position, and what you'd like to do in this role on the Transportation Advisory Board.
Thank you for having me here this afternoon. My name is Brian Conley. I have been a resident here in Salt Lake City for 27 years now, and have worked with Salt Lake City School District as
Sure, the green light on your is on. Here's the little button.
Sorry about that. Thank you. My time here in Salt Lake City, the interest that I have in the position, but my background as an educator and also as a parent, raised my 4 boys here, and I have 2 stepchildren. So over the last 27 years, 6 children. We've driven a lot of the city due to work. My job currently as a boundary and planning director takes me all over the city. But as a individual and as part of my family, a lot of biking around Salt Lake City, a lot of walking and hiking around Salt Lake City, just those different transportation methods. I have a stepdaughter who takes public transit to her high school every day for school. We use tracks that just the connections and watching our city become more aware and driven by modes of transportation other than just a car has been really, I think, a big plus for our city, and also enlightening for myself watching that process through my new job through boundaries and boundary and planning. I know that District 5, which is where I'd represent, Councilmember Mano had some real appreciation and passion for affordable housing. I think that component of trying to drive into that goes hand in hand with transportation. We think a lot about affordable housing and transportation as far as how to best serve our 5 to 18-year-olds in our city. We just really try to help our families make connections so that Salt Lake City remains a city that feels like you can move around easily in it to where you need to go and do what you need to do with work, with school, with any sort of recreation as well. So growing interest in those areas, having started at the school level in education and now expanding to the district level, has piqued my interest also in serving on this committee.
Great. Any other questions?
Yep, thanks for representing District 5 on the tab, and excited to have your expertise there, and really excited to have cross intergovernmental collaboration between your role with the school district and our role with the city. Thanks for serving.
Thank you for saying that. I do want to add that over the last especially few years through the mayor's office, Jen Newell, Mayor Mendenhall, many others, a lot of your planners, a lot of your just public safety and planners, and even the crossing guard supervisor and the relationship that we have as a district. It's really grown over the last 3 or 4 years. To feel more the way it should, instead of two separate entities, it's two entities really collaborating and working together. So looking forward to doing more of that as well.
No, me. Are you calling me? My light's on.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Young.
I, too, am excited to have more K-12 people involved here in the city. Not only are you reliable, you show up on time, but I think the thing that I always appreciate is the fact that you have a lens for not just what the needs are for today, but what the needs are for the future. And I think that is just one of the strengths that I always appreciate that our educators bring to the conversations. It's really easy to get mired in like the issues of the day or even of the week or the month. But thank you for being willing to bring that expertise to help inform our city and move forward.
Thank you.
Councilmember Petro.
I can attest to Mr. Conley's ability to navigate even the toughest issues in a collaborative setting. He and I got to work on some stuff while Mary W. Jackson was still a thing, and he's a very rational voice oriented around problem solving. So thank you for volunteering your time for the city.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, some tough decisions that have to be made. I would love to see Salt Lake grow in the area. I know when I moved here 27 years ago, I thought I'd be here for 3 or 4 years, and it was just such a great spot to raise children, and want to have that for future. I want other families to be able to come and see that as well. So we do have to make some tough decisions with the ebb and flow of our young population, and hopefully we're going to get some more of that young population back in the city limits.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We will place your name on the consent agenda at our next formal meeting for adoption. You need not be present to win, and there won't be an opportunity to speak at that meeting, but you're more than welcome to join us. Our next formal meeting will be on the 21st at 7 o'clock.
Okay, I believe I have a board meeting for our district that same night.
That's fine. No problem.
Duty calls, but I'll be here in spirit.
Great. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, and thanks for your service to Salt Lake City.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that brings us to report of the chair and vice chair. I do not have a report. Vice Chair, do you have a report?
I don't have anything to report. Thank you.
Staff? All right, nothing from staff. All right, that's all we have. That concludes our city council work session for today, and we will be adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
5:40.